and or Mr. Douglas to you, or audience today. Before we go any further though, let me just take a moment of gratitude. Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, I just want to say thank you for this day. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for such a time as this. I pray and hope that once this session is through, somebody will be enlightened a little more than they were yesterday, a little more than they were last week. I pray that today's session will go free without any challenges or any hindrance. Whatever I feel of asking, I pray that you feel not to grant it unto us. In your precious heavenly name, I pray. Amen. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So let us, without any further delay, let us get into the introduction of Mr. Ennis. So Atif Ennis is an accomplished social scientist with over 20 years experience in innovation, business development, and customer relationship management, marketing, and finance in Jamaica, throughout the Caribbean, and the United States. His current responsibilities as commercial director at JaCIRT includes developing and driving the ICT strategy imperatives for Jamaica as a template that the company replicates in other markets. Atif is widely regarded as a leading authority in big data and artificial intelligence, telemedicine, knowledge process outsourcing, developing new virtual segments, and positioning social and economical impact of technology on developing economies and emerging markets. He is a well-sought-after public speaker, regularly delivering keynote and addresses on these matters all over the world. Prior to this, Atif was the general manager for Nexstar Technologies, Northern Caribbean Hub, until the acquisition by JaCIRT in March 2013. He was the chief architect and orchestrated Nexstar Technologies' tremendous growth and successful transition into key markets like Trinidad and Tobago, Cayman Islands, Bermuda, TCI, and Jamaica. This helped to solidify the company as the preferred turnkey solutions provided across the Caribbean. Atif has worked extensively throughout the region and has held senior executive positions with Neil and Massey Group. He was a key member of the investment committee that facilitated the acquisition of Shell Caribbean and the Neil Massey Group. Among his many achievements, Atif conceptualized and developed the business plan for the establishment of the first Caribbean Bureau in Jamaica, and was instrumental in the development of the smart classroom concept in Jamaica with the e-learning company. He has served the IT advisory board at the PSOJ and currently serves on a number of boards, including the Jamaica Tourist Innovation Council, Trust NTA IT Council, and as chairman of the ZBE Foundation. He was recently appointed to serve on the prestigious Substantial Development Leadership Committee at the Center for Integrated Global Biomedical Science at the University of Buffalo. The committee focuses on the challenges that low-middle-income countries faces when implementing new initiatives and fight non-communicable disease such as diabetes. Atif is a graduate of the Florida International University and Columbia University, is currently married to Daniel, and has 3 children. Let us give a virtual round of applause to our Mr. Ennis. Our next panelist that we will be having today, as was stated before, is our Charles Douglas. And Charles Douglas, as was stated earlier, is from Flow. So here is the introduction to Charles. Charles has worked in the telecommunications industry for over 30 years and currently supports the Jamaica Business in the role of Director Regulatory Affairs, in the role of Director for Regulatory Affairs. He has responsibility for implementing Flow's local number portability strategy across the Caribbean and has enjoyed success in managing policies matters relating to the mobile and fixed termination rates, spectrum mobile and fixed number portability numbering, quality of service, price regulation, market dominance, infrastructure sharing, internet exchange points, interconnection agreements, universal service, licensing cable TV, among others. He's a former adjunct lecturer at the Caribbean Institute of Media and Communications, CARIMAC, at the University of West Indies, Mona campus, where he served as course director for its legal and regulatory frameworks and interconnection in telecommunications networks course, both of which form a part of CARICOM's Masters in Telecommunications Policy and the Technology Management Program. Charles has read for a Bachelor of Science honors degree from the University of West Indies with majors in accounting and economics. He has earned a Master's of Science degree with distinction in telecommunications policy and technology management from the Mona School of Business, where he also received a Principal's Award for Outstanding Leadership. A deliberate and measured leader, he has completed certificate courses in business studies, utility rate making and analyzing fundamental interconnection principles, utility regulation, and strategic network cost modeling and telecommunications management in the new environment. He has served as a member of the advisory committee of the Telecommunications Policy Program, Mona School of Business, and National Digital Switchover Steering Committee, the Number Planning Area Steering Committee, the Number Portability Working Group of Jamaica, ECTEL States and Barbados, among others. Charles is married and spends time doing Bible education work in his community, which includes teaching persons to read. He enjoys playing lawn tennis, table tennis, chess, reading, writing, snorkeling, painting, drawing, and traveling. So let us again do a virtual round of applause to our Mr. Charles Douglas. At this point in time, I will open the floor to our Mr. Ennis for a brief talk around the topic before we hand over to Mr. Douglas, and then we will commence the discussion among our panelists. Just a point of information, today's session is very interactive, and as such, I encourage that anybody that has any questions for either of the panelists, you can indicate by raising your hand, or you can send the same question in the chat, and we will try our utmost best to get those questions to the necessary panelists. Mr. Ennis, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Giovanni, and good afternoon to my fellow panelists, as well as distinguished guests and persons who are actually watching the stream live on Facebook. The topic of internet access and cost has been around for some time, and it's a constant in our conversations with a number of our customers, including as early as this morning, there was a broader conversation around the cost of providing internet connectivity in the region and not just limited to Jamaica. But what we've found is there are two contributing factors that impacts cost and access. In our industry, the capital that's required to build out a fiber network or a fixed wireless network is enormous. And typically in telecommunications, if you find yourself breaking even or in the black in the first 20 years of operation, then you're in a very good, it's a very slow moving, painstaking industry where you spend a lot of money. The cost of maintaining the network is also extremely expensive on an annual basis. And with the rapid movement in technological advancements and the shelf life of technology being constrained to between 3 and 6 months, you have to be very smart about how you future-proof any kind of investment. And Jamaica is no different. The unique nature of our geographical build-out also has creates some headwinds in terms of how you design, how you build out, and how you structure. And whereas from when you're building mobile networks, you're able to put towers in different areas to maximize the coverage. The fault tolerance with mobile networks is, while it's high and it's deliberate, when you go into providing internet grade, business grade internet, which is DIA, you have to couple that with a number of wraparounds and ensure that the kind of bandwidth speeds that people are getting is symmetrical. If somebody's paying for 100 megs, they want to make sure that they're getting 100 megs up and down 100% of the time. You also want to make sure that there is an SLA, service level agreements, put in place that manages the standard of care and how you deliver the service. And you also want to minimize latency and jitters on the network, because the throughput that is required to run businesses, especially businesses that are running mission critical operations, is such that those types of external factors can cause have a serious impact on business operations. So when we think about it within that context, Jamaica is a very mountainous country. It has very deep rural communities. More than half of our population live in the KSA, Kingston and St. Andrew metropolitan areas. And then you have pockets of different diversities in urban areas, in towns, in communities, and so on. But if you drive around the island, what you'll see is there's tremendous space between communities that make it a little bit challenging for companies to actually build a network that give the kind of access that can be comparable on a global scale. So we have taken an approach where we leverage all of our network assets when we do our surveys and we do our feasibility studies. We look at the terrain and we make a determination that if it's fixed wireless, we're going point to point, or if this requires fiber, which is the preferred approach, but it's most expensive, or we can leverage new technologies like TDD, LTE, or LEO, low Earth orbit technologies that are actually becoming more and more popular to serve those deep rural communities that still need to stay connected and still need to move forward. And I think the pandemic has actually amplified some of those concerns, where online classes, especially for our students, is the mode of delivering educational content now, and so many students are being left behind because they either have insufficient internet connectivity or none at all in some of these rural areas. And I know we're working with the Ministry of Education to solve that problem, but I think it's going to take a collaborative approach and perhaps a stronger PPP, a public-private partnership framework that would allow private sector companies like us to invest, but leverage, some of the government assets that would be beneficial. And then that kind of partnership would, hopefully drive the cost of providing and maintaining the services down. So I think we're at a stage now in the evolution cycle where we now need to take a serious look at how can we accelerate some of the plans that we have, how can we accelerate some of the build outs in some of the areas that we have, some of the strategic areas like the eastern end of the island and so on, and structure our partnerships in a way that it's a win-win situation and we're getting the desired outcome. So we're fully cognizant of that. We're fully aware of the need and the urgency, and all of the plans and the decisions that we're making internally as a business is designed to make sure that every single person, every Jamaican, has access to high-speed quality internet service, either for studying, e-commerce, for social interaction. Telemedicine is a big part of doing that, and building out community health-based practitioners that can actually feed into a central database for that kind of work. National security is a critical part of that journey as well. So it's taking those critical segments and building an ecosystem that allows everybody to flourish with the right kind of connectivity, the right resilience built in, and at the right cost. So I'm extremely delighted to be a part of the discussion and to contribute and share some of our experiences, as well as some of the ideas that we want to move forward with. And I'm hoping that it will be a productive afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Ennis. I do hope it will be a productive, I'm certain that it will be a productive afternoon also. Mr. Douglas, we're handing over to you now.
Thanks a lot, Giovanni. Good afternoon to everybody. Any reason why all the cameras are off? Camera turned off?
Yeah, I think
I'm speaking into a bit of a black box, and it's just a little bit.
I think the host is actually controlling that. So
right. So if the host could just accommodate that, I'm not just looking at a black screen, it would help. Great. It's a little more humane. All right, great. So look, we are happy to be here to share with you. We've been asked to talk for maybe 10 to 15 minutes. We'll try and split that. And I do have some prepared remarks. So good afternoon and welcome to all. Flow has been here for 150 years, and we've been an unwavering partner to the country's development in supporting its people and its economy. We power various industries while providing communication services and entertainment services, and are mindful of the crucial role that we play in realizing digital transformation across the whole country. Of course, the current COVID-19 pandemic, which is perhaps the most formidable of challenges that we've ever had to face, has accelerated the need for Jamaica's transition into a digital society. The rapid digital transformation has necessitated ongoing measures to improve our readiness for a digital economy. And at Flow, we believe that we're well on our way to supporting our journey to the Vision 2030. Indeed, much is being said about our progress, and with most of the conversations focused on broadband across the country. Flow welcomes the dialogue and the role the information and communications technology sector must play in bridging the digital divide. And we're happy to be a part of this panel, and we're looking forward to the various views of the stakeholders and my fellow panelists. There is no doubt that we accept that there is a positive correlation between Jamaica's ICT infrastructure and its economic growth. And this is well documented and is the key driver for our multi-billion-dollar investments within the country, both in mobile, landline, and broadband and subscriber television service. And as we discuss the theme of cost versus legitimacy, we hope to illuminate some critical factors for consideration as we think about the provision of internet services going forward, which is key for education and so many other things. So let's start with the cost of internet service. Now, there have been many discussions and commentary around the need for access to broadband as the pandemic has brought into sharp focus the digital divide. As critical service providers, we are mindful of our responsibility, especially during this time, and we're backing up that with investments of billions of dollars in the industry, both to provide critical infrastructure that forms a backbone for broadband capacity, as well as Wi-Fi access. We have significantly ramped up our network expansion program called Mission Connect, under which we have connected 425 communities on our fiber fast network since January 2020. Since January 2021, over 73 communities have connected to our fiber fast network outside of Kingston and St. Andrew and St. Catherine. And we maintain our commitment to bring more underserved and unserved communities into the online space. This is in addition to the over 750 communities on our other networks connected to our networks between 2016 and 2020. So it's fair to say that we've brought connectivity to tens of thousands of Jamaicans. In fact, to put it in context, our fixed network currently passes approximately 700,000 households across the country, which means that they have access to fixed voice, internet, and in most instances, cable TV services. We believe that these numbers are unmatched in the local industry, and we remain the only operator that is making the necessary investments to bring connectivity in a real way to more Jamaicans. And we can confidently say that we are supporting Vision 2030 and can show our network expansion progress as tangible proof of how we're delivering in the support of this national goal. Of course, we have continued to make investments in our mobile network to deliver LTE broadband speeds to hundreds of thousands of Jamaicans at the most competitive rates in the country. And our current population coverage of the mobile network stands at 97%. Not geographic coverage of where people live, population centers, where people live, 97%. So in this context, in context of investment, let's just look at the cost to do business in Jamaica. Now, in his presentation to the Jamaica Stock Exchange Forum earlier this year, David Cox, who is the president of Canto, shared that there is evidence to suggest that the telecommunications industry in the Caribbean and Latin America are among the most highly taxed in the world, and stating that there is strong correlation between the evidence that the industry is certainly among the most highly taxed in their own markets. Consider some of the points that are made and some of the facts that are a reality. So the corporate tax in Jamaica is 33%, and this has been unchanged for decades. This compares with corporate tax rate worldwide of 23%, and in the US it's 21%, and in Europe it's just 20%. And of course, consumers bear a disproportionate of the tax burden. GCT on telecom services and devices is 25%, where GCT on non-telecom products and services is just 16.5%. The effect of these policies is that the specific taxes on telecoms in Jamaica is among the highest across all of Latin America. And so it's not surprising that in a joint study, the GSMA and the consulting firm Deloitte discovered that more than half, or 55% of all telecoms operators' total revenues in Jamaica goes towards taxes paid by both consumers, in the form of GCT and a special tax, and telcos in the form of corporate tax, import duties, per minute call tax, and if you roll up license fees and so on, it's all there. For comparison, across Latin America, study finds the average tax burden borne by telco consumers and operators is 25%, compared 25% with our 55%. The same study by GSM and Deloitte finds that this heavy tax burden is impacting the affordability of mobile services in Jamaica. It is therefore clear that the taxes paid by operators, 25% GCT is disproportionate to the 10% for hotels and other approved businesses in the tourism sector, and 15% GCT for other services. Notwithstanding this, Flow's commitment to connect communities remain as strong as ever. Over the last 2 years, 2019 to 2020, Flow has built out its network infrastructure to unserved and underserved areas at the average rate of over 65,000 new households per year. In addition to our annual network investment of approximately 50 million to 60 million US dollars per year, or in the region of 7 billion Jamaican dollars. Flow has, since 2005, paid well over 30 million US dollars, or 4.35 billion Jamaican dollars, into the Universal Access Fund, formerly called the Universal Service Fund, which was established to build network infrastructure in areas where there were little or no commercial incentives to do so. It's important to note that Flow is not the only company which has been paying into the Universal Service Fund, and the other service providers in the market are also paying. Let's just briefly reflect on the cost to the consumer. We talked about the cost to business. Let's talk about the cost to consumer. Now, the truth is that many have assumed that once you build a network in an area, all the residents in the community, they will then flock to the service, they will apply for the service and enjoy the service, and they will, boom, have access, they'll be connected. Well, that's not the case. We've built the networks, and we have not seen that corresponding take-up of services, and it's really largely down to an affordability issue. Affordability, in our view, remains the major impediment, as the industry is also the most taxed in the region, the ability of most Jamaicans to access services and devices. Compared to the English-speaking Caribbean countries, Jamaica's gross national income is low. For example, Jamaica's gross national income is, say, in the US $5,000 region, right? $1,520. Compared to Barbados, it's 15,000 US $172. In Turks and Caicos, $21,337. And in Trinidad and Tobago, US $15,760. So one consequence of this is that even though both on fixed mobile broadband prices in Jamaica are among the lowest in the Caribbean, both due to competitive forces in the market and the weak Jamaican dollar, these prices still represent a high percentage of the gross national income of our citizens as compared to other countries. In the case of mobile, it represents 5.6% and fixed 6.4%, which is the highest across the region. Following our taxes that they have to pay special call tax, which is a per minute tax on local calls from fixed to mobile, mobile to fixed. And the tax was intended to be temporary, it has proved to be permanent. They have to pay GCT on top of special call tax. So the evidence is all over about the negative impact that this is having on cost for access, affordability, accessibility to the citizens. Statin has done work on this, and they have showed that less than 50% of the households have a computer, and just over 50% of households have access to the internet. It's a problem that we need to fix. The reasons vary, whether it's because of the cost of devices, other factors including general standards of living, education, per capita income, the paucity of the availability of government services online. Not all consumers place the same value on having a broadband connections as their governments do. And while it should never be an argument for complacency, it does not alleviate the urgency for continued investment in broadband networks in countries like Jamaica. It does point to the need for policy interventions on the part of government to stimulate the demand for broadband services. And we all believe which we all believe and know to be important and necessary for our economic advancement and empowerment. So by these stocks, we have a very significant challenges ahead with respect to the inability of many to afford broadband services, and that along with the government who manages our country's fiscal purse, we need to figure out a solution to overcome this long-standing, decades-old challenge of affordability. We need a collaborative approach. We keep saying that. We believe it. It has to be a public-private partnership to conquer the challenge of affordability. And we are aligned to negotiate, to collaborate, to discuss and agree on a policy mix that would ensure greater affordability as well as commercial viability for the entities in the space. I'll try to wrap up now. There is completely a role for the Universal Service Fund. We've talked about the monies paid into that fund in anticipation for this very day, for this very pandemic, so to speak, and we haven't proven to be ready. We need to partner with the Universal Service Fund and other structures of government to see how we can effectively execute policies that really will enable the development of infrastructure, which is the underpinnings of broadband access. Let's just briefly, quickly talk about the low fidelity and the broadband issues amidst the ever-increasing need for broadband during the pandemic, and I'll just quickly touch on that. In 2020, we saw the COVID-19 effect, unprecedented traffic on our network. We experienced a full year's growth of the traffic on the network in 2.5 months. This meant that we had a 58% increase in the demand over the year. Over 2019, almost twice the demand that we had for the full year growth for 2019. We experienced that in 2.5 months because of the pandemic. There's greater demand for connectivity driven, because of the various work from home protocols, online learning, social interaction, entertainment, all of that has moved online, as we are aware of. And what the interesting development is that all the work from home protocols basically has moved the business traffic from business infrastructure to residential homes, which has caused us to try and really flex to really adjust, to accommodate that overnight transition. And of course, there's an increase in the use of OTT services, as Netflix, various demands for data as people seek to entertain themselves in lockdown and other times. Change in different, peak hours, consumption hours, and the patterns has been very clear. And of course, we've accelerated our plans to keep up. We've added subsea capacity to treat with demand. We've added a new Netflix server to treat with the increased OTT demand. We've sought additional spectrum and improved our mobile core capacity by over 53%. We've expanded our capacity for video IPT services, video on demand services, and we've tried to keep up with the pace of the demand that's taking place, largely due to the transition under COVID. Of course, there are challenges. There are significant outages on the network. The top cause is loss of commercial power, theft and vandalism wreaking havoc across the networks. Of course, we're not a power company. As we implement modern technology, we have to depend heavily on commercial power from the JPS. Batteries being stolen, generators being stolen, gas being stolen. We cannot keep up with the cost of replacement. Already in 2021, January to July, we have 180 incidents of vandalism costing us $400,000 to fix. And of course, prior year 2020, we had 600 incidents and it cost us $2 million to fix. Cables are teared down, there are illegal connections, there are electrical burns, there are motor vehicle accidents, all of which are attacking the network, and we're doing everything in our power to mitigate. We are trying to transition from copper to fiber, which is one of the things that the thieves are particularly interested in for their own purposes. We're trying to do proactive maintenance. We are improving our monitoring. We're not there yet. We're doing our best, and we are adding additional capacity to be better and committed to improving our service, our availability, and the quality of our service to customers. Installing fiber and trying to migrate customers to better technology. And of course, we continue to invest billions and billions of dollars in the country. We have firm conviction in the future. We believe we have no choice. Our citizens deserve it. And we're doing everything we can to improve. So in closing, I just want to say that we're happy to be a part of this panel. And the demand for broadband will only intensify. We know this. Too many of our population areas are unserved or underserved, and we have a commitment to delivering accessible, affordable, and sustainable services to them. We are committed to playing our role, and the path before us is challenging, but we believe, along with the other players in the market, along with the folks on this call, that we have the pedigree to meet the challenge, and I'm happy to be a part of this panel. So thank you for listening, and I turn back to our chairman, and happy to participate in the subsequent discussions.
Thank you, Mr. Douglas, and thank you to Mr. Ennis. So to kickstart this discussion, we know we have the two representatives from our major telco companies here in Jamaica, and also representative from JaCIRT, the head of JaCIRT, or Colonel Sterling. So again, for those who have joined us after the introduction, this is an open discussion. If you have a question, please feel free to raise your hand. We will try and indicate your time when it's your time to speak. Or if you want to add those questions in the chat, feel free to do so, and we will try our utmost best to get to the question. I will give Mr. Sterling 5 minutes to just give his quick talk around today's topic, and then we will nosedive into the discussion among yourself and our two participants from our telco companies. So, Mr. Colonel Sterling, your time.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ennis, Mr. Douglas, our moderator, Mr. Hewitt, the invited guests, and those joining us on Facebook. When you listen to the two speakers prior, you get a sense of almost doom and gloom when you hear about some of the challenges to provide internet connectivity. But the reality for the individual seeking to get online is that, especially in those areas that are not within that 7-mile region of the coastline or in a major population center, then you have very little coverage or no coverage at all. And while we understand that new technologies are being looked at in a view to really try and alleviate the situation, we recognize the challenges being exacerbated by the rate of digitization that the pandemic has foisted upon us. But when we look at how both companies have approached their infrastructure rollout, we really have to ask as consumers, if we are living in a hurricane belt, we're living in a country which sits basically on a fault line, why is it that such a great percentage of your infrastructure remain on poles above ground? We have quite a bit of road infrastructure projects going. Why is there such a difficulty to sort of build the collaborative effort to get ducts put in place to take your infrastructure subterranean? When we talk about the subsea capabilities that have been brought to the country, and we look at building out that fiber ring to get more high-speed connectivity to more places, the question really comes down to, why is it taking the time it is? with respect to bandwidth for both the fixed and the wireless, the question is, why can't we really get what we're paying for? And while we know that the speakers have spoken to their checks to ensure that they minimize latency, they minimize jitters, and that you get what you're paying for, the reality and the experience of many customers is that what they actually get isn't close to what they're paying for. We understand that the gross national income is quite low, but when it really comes down to an individual being told or asked to work from home, and in the middle of everything, you get a grayout or a total blackout, it really does not help. And oftentimes, the challenges come from sometimes illegal connections. So what is the sort of mechanism in place to police your own lines to ensure that illegal connections are not there? Are we going to get to a stage like the JPS where entire communities are locked off just because a few people are trespassing on your network? I laud the initiative to try and replace copper with fiber. And I understand that initially this might be a big spend, but I would like to believe that if we truly invest in fiber, especially for the long hauls, that last mile bit will actually drive people to the networks. And while the uptake prior to the pandemic may have been slow, certainly since the start of the pandemic, the uptick in that application for and accessing of legitimate connections to your networks will really pay off in time to come, because we're not going back to the pre-2019 days. We might not fully stay where we are now, but certainly the reduction as we get back to a more or a less restricted lifestyle is not going to be what it was prior. And when we talk about cost, the challenge that we face as consumers oftentimes is not that we pay for the service, but is that we really don't get what we're paying for. And especially with some of the wireless customers, the constant complaints to some of the talk shows and certainly the Consumer Affairs Commission is that the credit or the data when put on the devices sometimes seem to disappear. Why is that? And is there a reason or is there a way to stop it? When we talk about how these complaints are dealt with and the role of the Office of Utilities Regulation, we see challenges in how the enforcing of the guaranteed standards are actually done across the board. And so from a consumer standpoint, when you look at how costly it is to provide the service and that we really have to pay for it because we need it, but then we don't get it, how can we legitimately say that, you know, we're providing to the customers what they're asking for? And is this the primary reason why there is now a seeming bloom of questionable service providers, some of them operating out of back offices with no regulation because they're not really licensed to provide the service? However, these underserved and no-served areas, when we talk about U2 being the primary providers, these companies are springing up everywhere, and they're trying to sell a service they're not licensed to, or they're not able to provide. So that question of legitimacy really resonates with those persons in the deep rural areas and in some inner city communities. So those would be my initial comments, Mr. Hewitt, and we look forward to a spirited discussion.
Thank you, Colonel Sterling. Colonel Sterling indeed asked some tough questions, but let me pick out just something that really resonated from the essence of what Colonel Sterling has been saying, and I'll ask Mr. Ennis to elaborate further on this matter, what it is that Digicel is doing from a standpoint of educating the customers that they have as to what they're doing and their intentions of improving whatever poor service that they are getting or they seem to be getting. Because from a technical standpoint, I can sit and say, oh, I understand where digital is at, but we don't have as much technical persons using the service. So what it is that digital has in the pipeline or has been doing to ease the discomfort that the regular customers are experiencing, and what will be done in the future to eliminate some of these challenges.
Sorry. Let me see if I can answer the question this way. We get a number of persons calling into our care centers, saying different things. You know, the complaints might be the data is being consumed. You mentioned that, Colonel. Their data is being consumed and they don't know what it's being consumed about. Let's just raise a couple of those things. And then from a performance standpoint, that they're experiencing performance degradation either through drop calls or throttling. So there are a couple of things that I need to explain. On the data side, the smartphone users now they're utilizing so many different applications, not just social media. You might have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter running in the background. You may have tons of apps on your phone that are actually updating. You may have WhatsApp messages coming in. You have different things that are actually data-centric applications on your phone that you may not be paying close attention to what they're doing in the background. And what will happen is if Facebook does a dump or Instagram does a dump or a refresh of your account and sends in a bunch of messages that include pictures, that include videos, and so on and so forth, it's consuming your data. So what will happen is somebody will top up on a plan, and the plan will say social media, might have a little bit of YouTube in there, and then it may have, for argument's sake, 6 or 10 gigs of data. And that's a plan that they're on, and they'll purchase that plan for a week. But the rate of consumption, and we've always demonstrated this, so when they call in or we take them through and we show them what your data consumption is, and you can look at your phone, and all of those, the most smartphones now will register where your data is being consumed. So if you look at watching YouTube videos, you're looking at watching Netflix, you look at clicking on videos that people may just send to you randomly, you may look at your social media usage, you will see that the rate of consumption that you have may not be commensurate to the types of plans that you're on. And because Jamaica has a significant, they're below the rest of the Eastern Caribbean and Latin America in terms of our GNI, our affordability and our ability to purchase the plans that will align with your consumption patterns is not there. So we end up subsidizing, in most instances, we subsidize the cost of a handset, we subsidize the cost of providing the service. We, at one point, were providing almost 60% of our minutes for free, and we still had to pay taxes, all of the relevant taxes on those free minutes because the regulators did not care. You know, but those are some of the incidents that we had to put in place to make sure that at the end of the day, the consumer had a service that they could actually be able to use at a price that is commensurate to what they can pay. Jamaica ranks, I would say, between 12th and 14th in the region in Latin America in terms of our cost for providing data services. I think we're about $1.34 per meg. That's the average price, right? And in doing that, when we build out a network, we've already invested over $1.3 billion in Jamaica alone, US dollars. And it costs us between $65 and $70 million a year just to maintain the network. We spend a lot of money on spectrum licensing fees on every year. We spend a significant amount of money on taxation. And in all of those areas, if we were to develop a public-private partnership framework that lends itself to us being able to have more money to invest in some of these services, then I think you would see a tremendous outturn and a willingness on our part to move in that direction with the government. And we're taking on a lot of the risk. We're taking on a lot of the burden in terms of building out fiber plants, in terms of deploying additional transmission poles so that we can get better coverage areas. But at the end of the day, we're unable to recoup most of these costs in some of the areas that we deploy. And I'll give you an example. It may cost us $250,000 to $300,000 to put in a 30-meter pole in a community. And in deploying that service, we would need a critical mass of, say, 22,000 subscribers, net subscribers coming on the network. In most instances, we're getting 800 and 500. So the investment sits there, and you now have to put a burden on other areas to try and recoup it. So there are so many areas that we've invested, putting in poles, running fiber plants, putting in fixed wireless infrastructure, different network assets. But we're unable because the commercial activity just does not support the kinds of investments that we're putting in. Now, we have to make sure that at the end of the day, we have a responsibility, not just to our customers, but we have a responsibility to our shareholders who are going back to and asking for money to do all of these things. And if at any point in time, they come to the conclusion that they're not making a reasonable rate of return on those investments, then it makes it extremely difficult to continue our network modernization program or contribute to the accelerated pace at which digitization needs to take place in Jamaica. So I think the conversation needs to be centered more around how do the key players and the key stakeholders in the ecosystem, and the government being a critical player in this particular case, how can we come together, look at all of the different cost inputs, look at all of the areas of focus that is required to provide the service, and see how best we can put our minds together and our resources together to not duplicate efforts, but to leverage network assets where we can, to leverage expertise where we can, and take advantage of that so that at the end of the day, the consumer benefits. But I think the only way we're going to get there is if we start collaborating more closely and we look at this as a vital role that we play in society, where we're critical service providers, So we assist in national security, we assist in health, we assist in education, and so many people, 2.4 million people depend on these services every single day for different reasons. So I think it behoves us to move the conversation more around, here are the challenges that we're facing, here's what we want to do to fix them, and how can we collaborate better to get to that outcome much faster than what we're doing right now. I'd just like to wrap up with one additional thing that the Colonel mentioned, that if we create so many vulnerability points when we run aerial fiber, why are we not going subterranean? The cost difference between a kilometer of subterranean fiber and aerial fiber is almost 12 to 1. It on average costs between $5,000 and $6,000 per kilometer for aerial fiber. Subterranean is $70,000 per kilometer. So if you're going to do subterranean fiber, and I would say 85% of our fiber plants are underground at the moment. But if you're going to do subterranean fiber around the island, putting in resilient rings, because of this, so many dead spaces that exist, and by dead spaces, I mean not enough commercial activity or residential activity for you to actually recoup on that investment. If we were to run fiber, for example, going via Stony Hill to Port Antonio, that entire belt will never be able to pay for it, the cost of providing the service. You're talking about costing of ducting, you're talking about costing of electronics, you're talking about maintenance on it. It's a significant investment. So when we look at a business case, it has to be evaluated on merit, on whether or not when you spend 10 or 15 million US dollars will you be able to recoup that money in the next 10 or 15 years? And if you can't, then it becomes a very difficult conversation to convince our respective shareholders to spend. So I think we have to get to a point where we now start looking at how do we make sure we're not duplicating our efforts, but we're building a resilient network all the way around the island that everybody can benefit from.
Yeah,
Thank you.
just to jump in, guys. So I think Abid spoke very well, and I'm not gonna duplicate what he said, right? But it's in forums like these that we need to have a conversation so that we broaden the understanding and appreciation of what is happening, right? I just want to make a few comments complementing what he said, right? So one is, we have been in ongoing talks with the government to understand its rights of way policy and to participate in going with ducts, building out in areas where it is building duct, just as you said, and that's a very difficult conversation. And we are optimistic about it, but understand that the government has initially set out on a path to build its own discrete network. And that's where we're recalibrating from. So again, you need to understand, right? We are trying to do exactly as you said. The second thing is, yes, aerial fiber has its place, but we are also building into, we are also trenching, we are ducting around the country. It's in a huge effort. We're having to cement down the manholes. We're having to, put concrete over egresses and so on. Why? Because of the lawlessness. You're talking about the lack of power. You're talking about policing our network. Now, just imagine us deploying a police force to manage and protect the network. So we still have to be a country of laws. So the point is, as important as the network is, and it is important, let's not, in an effort to get it done, place solely on service providers the obligation that a country has to itself. So it requires a collaborative partnership. We have a power generating industry. We have a police force. You have an army. So what is missing is that we're not collaborating as best as we can. We know we'll get there, but we need to try. Many other countries are undertaking economic benefit programs or voucher programs to help people to afford broadband, right? Montserrat, Puerto Rico, there are other places. What's the business model can we use? So the point is we are not preaching doom and gloom. We actually are investing. Just as Mr. Ennis said, we are investing. That's the biggest indicator of activity, of optimism. But we have to make the point that we can go faster, we can achieve more if we just work together. And there are no more other points you mentioned that we could speak to, but I will defer to the chairman at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Douglas. Just a quick question as we segue, because one of the common things I noticed, or the common thread, is a deeper collaborative relationship between the telcos and the government of Jamaica. And I noticed that in your opening statements, you mentioned policy frameworks being developed. What would that policy framework look like, or what would a policy framework look like that would enable the telcos to give their customers a better service? Because from the government standpoint, we also do have a responsibility to ensure that our citizens are being treated the best way possible. So what would that policy framework look like between the government of Jamaica and the telcos to assist in getting the customers of these services the best possible usage that they can get from the services?
Who do you want to take that, me?
Yes, you.
All right, so that's a really loaded question. That's a wide question, and I'm not going to propose that I can address all of it. But at its bare minimum, it requires.
Douglas, just before you get into it, this is a forum where we answer tough questions. And we require the frank answers, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, man. So far, I've only been
Just
hearing
a
easy
walkthrough.
questions, so I'm bracing myself for the tough ones.
Okay.
But yeah, at its bare minimum, right? We need to honestly ask ourselves, how important is ICT and broadband to our national development and its role in leapfrogging many steps that we otherwise would have had to take to become a prosperous and resilient country? Once we agree on that and we believe it, then we're going to have to try to make policies that are going to stimulate the investment, the protection and deployment of this network. We talked about the tax regime, you need to look at it. You talk about being a country of laws, we need to pay attention to it. And I think if we're honest, and we may just have a period of height, we say, look, for the 5 years on, this is how we're gonna address this. And then 5 years after, we will do a review, but we're going to allow, just like when you try to breathe life in the tourism industry, which is doing so well. It's not by accident, you know, it's by policy. That's why they're paying 10% tax and we're paying, you know, 50-odd%. So if it's you need to figure out what's the vehicle that's going to get you where you need to go and put your, get the bang for your buck, and ICT is it. So how do you treat the resources that will enable access to ICT, rights of way, spectrum, and so on? We've postured that spectrum is really a money-generating resource to go back in the console fund. In other words, it's $64,000 per meg, right? For say 700 spectrum. So depending on the spectrum you need, you're talking about a bill of $30 million US just for the spectrum without delivering a minute of traffic over the network, you know, much less making a return on it. So we're gonna have to look at what our assets are, what the infrastructure is, and decide how do we want to use it to empower the country, and we do it on a phase basis. You're gonna have to look at the regulatory framework. Are we going to try to have open networks? Are we gonna ask companies to invest in networks and then have them open to everyone to use and not allow them to make a return on the investment? Are we gonna have some partnership in what the investment vehicle looks like? It's a real issue, because remember, when you think about 200 plus countries across the world, and Mr. Ennis alluded to it, boards are looking to say, where can they put their money to get a return? And Jamaica is competing against the world, right? Not just among ourselves. One of the biggest parts of our competition right now is the Googles of the world, the Netflix of the world, the Facebooks of the world. It's not even within the shores of the country. What is going to be our policy posture about just targeting the people who are here, the brick and mortar people are here who have invested here, vis-a-vis people who are reaping huge dividends from the infrastructure built here and reaping the returns elsewhere, like the Facebooks and the Google. What's going to be that policy mix? So I'm not pretending to have all the answers. What I'm saying to you is we need to really sit down collaboratively to find out, and we have a role to play. We are building the network. We know what the costs are. We know what's involved. If we could get everything underground, Mr. Ennis, we are in a hurricane belt, we would have done so. But Flow has huge portions of its network underground at the prohibitive cost that Mr. Ennis referred to. So what we want is, we don't have all the answers. We're not perfect. We need to improve. We are investing, but we need a climate and a partnership between agencies such as yours and the government to collaborate to get the right mix in the end. And hopefully that answer was helpful.
Yes, it was. And if Mr. Ennis has anything to add to that, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we compete vigorously, and Charles would know this. But I think from an industry standpoint, when you look at it objectively, it's almost prohibitive for us to move forward with investments. And one of the low-hanging fruits that the government can actually look at right now is do exactly what it said when it created the SET, the special tax. It was designed to be temporary. It has now become permanent, and it is in my opinion, it is a barrier to investing going forward. Taxation, it impacts working capital and cash flow. You need cash to be able to invest. And I think if you create a service model that is cost prohibitive, where the consumers can't access it, then you're creating a major barrier. And I'll just give you an example. In the US, for example, the average spend for a plan on the network is about $61. That's what they spend. It's quite expensive. In Europe, it's closer to $20. And in the Caribbean, we have more than 400,000 of our consumers that spend like less than $1 per month on the network. That cannot sustain the level of investment that is required to provide the kind of service that we're asking for. So I think we have to be realistic in our expectations, but also, and this is a typical Jamaican behavior where we always punch above our weight, and we think that because of who we are, we're guaranteed, and we benchmark against persons whose resources are 10 times or 20 or 50 times more than ours. So I think it's important for us to manage that. But I think once we can structure a proper public-private partnership framework that lends itself to ongoing investment, that lends itself to being conducive to develop the kind of partnerships that we want, that lends itself to insulating companies that want to invest, so at least you get some level of protection to recoup your investment over a period of time, then I think we can move in the direction of getting to an open access network eventually. I don't think we're there yet, but I think eventually, maybe not a couple of years or 3 years, we can get there with the right kind of mix. So all we're asking for is an opportunity to sit at a table, have a constructive conversation, very candid conversation around some of these things, and then build a model that is going to take us forward. But it has to be a partnership that is a win-win. At the moment, I think some of the ask put you in a win-lose situation, which doesn't lend itself to the kind of outcomes that we want. So I can tell you quite frankly that our board, our senior leadership team is 100% committed to investing in Jamaica and the rest of the region. Is 100% committed to providing world-class service. Is 100% committed to building an all-island fiber ring with the level of resilience that is required. And all of those investments, the expectation is that we will be able to build secondary and IoT type advanced services on top of. But at the end of the day, it requires a level of collaboration with one key player, which is the government.
Thank you.
We're not waiting, so we're not standing still on our laurels. While we're anticipating this, we continue to invest.
Yeah.
Continue to invest, we continue to build. Always remember that. And we did share that. So we're not standing still. It's just that we really need to go faster.
Yeah.
The country requires us to go faster, and that requires a collaborative approach.
Thank you. So there's a question in the chat, and it states that, and I think this is for Mr. Ennis, you mentioned implementing of a fiber line from Stony Hill to Port Antonio. Why not adopt the principle of if you build it, they will come? Also, is there any plans to obtain additional investment through listing of public-private shares, etc., in order to lay out the much needed infrastructure? And that is for Mr. Ennis. Right.
So the first question around building and they would come. We did that, and that has not been our experience. We've been around for 20 years, and I mentioned to you before that there are investments that we've made in specific communities that we are still 10-15% there in terms of recouping, and those investments have to be subsidized by other areas. So it's not as simple as that. For the short answer, that at the end of the day, the cost of providing the service in Jamaica is not at a stage where the consumption patterns can actually adapt quickly. That's just the reality that we experience. So I'll give you an example. We went to a school called Harry Watson in Porus. It's probably, I would say, about between 10 and 12 miles from the main road in Porus, and you go all the way up into the hills, right? And the cost to run the fiber up there was a little bit over, maybe about 3.5 million Jamaican dollars, right? And you're spending 3.5 million Jamaican dollars to put a 10 meg connection that you get $150 a month from. Even if they sign a 15-year contract, you'd never be able to recoup that money. You know, and we have several instances where we've put in towers, we're putting fixed wireless solutions, we've run fiber, and the commercial activity is just not there to support. Even though when we did our feasibility studies, there were enough businesses along the line, there were enough, the population density was enough to push us in a particular direction. The access, once you start to do the pricing, even with the subsidies, is just not enough to have that take up. So I think it behoves us, and a big competing factor to that is the taxes. You know, by the time you add 25% and so on and so forth, and persons would be paying upwards of 42% in taxes just on the service, and that becomes a major headwind and a barrier to the kind of adoption that we want. As it relates to being a public company, we looked at that maybe 3.5 years ago. We were looking to list on the New York Stock Exchange because our business is a very capital intensive business. The board made a decision to pull back because they felt that the timing wasn't right. And I know that there might be internal conversations around that, which I cannot comment too much on. But for now, that's not on the cards. It's totally funded by our existing shareholders.
And I'd just like to jump on the back of that a bit, but he answered really well, is that one, Flow is building. Flow is making these investments, and there's risk to them, as he explained, because it's not as if you build them, people will come. That's not been our experience, right? Past 700,000 homes already. And of course, the network needs to be there so that when the government does its part to stimulate demand and so on, then we will take off. So that's fair, right? But there is a balance, and I'm aligning with much of what he said. The other thing, though, I want the questioner to reflect on, though, is the role of the Universal Service Fund. Because I've explained that since its inception, Flow alone, one party has paid $30 million into that fund. And that's a modest estimate. And Digicel, I don't know Digicel's numbers, but I can tell you they are more than ours. So what we need to understand, and what we need to just try to discuss and just be reasonable about. Look, we are a poor country, right? And maybe we use some of those funds to support incubators. Maybe we use them to do startup businesses. Maybe we use them to, provide tablets, maybe for different things. And, in principle, there's nothing wrong with any of those things. But as a country, we're going to have to sort of take a hard look to say, when we do those things, we've made the presumption that it has initially achieved its original objective, which is to subsidize infrastructure in areas where it's not commercially feasible to do so. And that's not the case. No, in hindsight, looking back, that's not the case. So the question and I'm not blaming anybody, right? I'm not, there are different reasons. We have an education tax. We probably don't use it a lot on education. Your tax, gas tax, it was probably to be used on the roads. We don't use it as much on the roads. We are a poor country. We have to collectively support each other, and we're corporate, and we will pay our taxes and so on. But the point is, let's just have an honest conversation around what we want to accomplish, how we'll fund it, and hold hands and hearts to go forward. Too often, what ends up happening is a knee-jerk reaction about what are the service providers doing, what are the telcos doing, and so on, and a disproportionate obligation is being placed on them to sort of put private capital towards social good without a return or without any framework that was supported, which is, I think, what Mr. Ennis is speaking to. So, Mr. Godfrey, we're not doom and gloom. I noticed you said, boy, you know, that's not it. We wouldn't be spending, we would be investing 50 million US dollars a year, 60 million, 67. We wouldn't be doing that. We are putting our money where our mouth is. What we're appealing to you on is to say, be conscious about all the factors and be part of the conversation along with us and others to get the solutions.
Thank you to Mr. Ennis and Mr. Douglas. And we have a few more questions from our audience. One question is, can a shift in marketing from ultra affordable plans to a more holistic use of the infrastructure be put in place as a vehicle to boost the returns on investments? And we throw that out to both you, Mr. Douglas, and Mr. Ennis.
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. We think of the network assets that we're actually investing in and building out as the transport layer. That's not where you see the value added services being, which have a little bit have better margins coming through. So let's just say, for example, when we put fiber infrastructure, fiber is enabling so many different things. It's enabling for financial institutions, all of their online banking. It's enabling their ATM network. It's enabling persons being able to fill out an application for a loan online. It's enabling e-commerce platform, online learning for schools, telemedicine, and so on and so forth. So the transport layer that we're building, the expectation is that investment is supposed to create an environment that is conducive for additional services. And those services that we put on top of it is really where we expect to recoup the money. There are different services that are in different life cycle stages, and Jamaica's adoption rate for some of these services might not be where we need it to be. And I think public education program would definitely assist with that, having a targeted marketing strategy around that, which we're doing above the line marketing, and in some areas, leveraging other areas of our business, like the foundation, to build out STEM academies across the island, or the special needs schools that we've built over 180 of them so far in different parts of the island. So we leverage different aspects of our business just to make sure that the impact that we're creating in some of these communities is long lasting, and it's also contributing to us being able to generate additional income from other value services that would go on top of it. So that's something that we're actively doing, and we expect seasonally to ramp up further, and hopefully we'll see a better take up going forward. But it's a very good point that that person actually made.
And he spoke well. I don't think there's much I can add to that, except that, the assumption that the demand is there and everybody's prioritizing it and it's important to everyone, it's not a reasonable assumption. And so the need for education, the role of government in the educational system, and how we enable people to just be able to afford that. And so once they start reaping the benefits and the value of it, and they realize that their lives and circumstances can be transformed, and then it will build on its, build up that momentum. But I'm aligned with his response, Mr. Ennis's response, but it's not as, it's incremental and it's progressive, and we need to start now and improve what we're doing and ramping up and building up. That when you get to the underserved areas, we have these low population densities, and so on, you just have to pay attention to it. Some people don't value the laptop or the computer as you think, right? If they have money, that's not where they're going to invest first. Because, to do what? They don't appreciate the kind of power that would bring into their households and how it would benefit their kids. So people are making choices not to, and so the demand has to be stimulated, is what I'm saying. It's not automatic.
Appreciated. So we have a bit more questions coming in. Let me see if I can find more. How do you manage the expectations of residents in a poor country in a connected world when everyone aspires to the same level of service. And again, that's to both our providers.
As you want to go first, I'll respond.
Yeah, look, you do the best you can. You do the best you can.
Yeah,
I
I think Jamaicans by nature, we have this ability, and it's one of our most endearing qualities, but it needs to be tempered sometimes. If you see the amazing track record that we have from our athletes, I mean, we qualified for the Rugby World Cup, and we don't even have a field. We have people qualifying for in swimming, in gymnastics, in different things. You know, we just an amazing cadre of talent that exists here, and it fuels in our mindset a level of confidence that we belong in this space. We have done enough to win all the time, and we bring over that into everything else, in every aspects of our life. So I think with the proximity to the US, we mirror our cultural dynamic against a lot of what happens there. The only challenge is we don't have their resources to be able to deliver it. And I think even with the best of intentions, again, the average spend, the ARPU, which is a key metric that we use in our business, is $61 in the US. In Jamaica, it's less than $5. So it's 1/12 of what they spend in the US. So you would have 12 times as much resource to actually invest and deliver a similar type of service. And I think for the most part in Jamaica, yeah, we may have challenges. Yes, we may have performance degradation from here and there. But I mean, I've lived in the States for a very long time, and I travel there regularly. And I have drop calls in New York. I have drop calls in Miami. I have areas in Florida where AT&T has one bar and I'm unable to make a call. And I think this misconception that their quality of service and their standards of service is always better is not always the case. So I think for us, being able to educate our population in a way that tempers not necessarily their ambitions, but tempers their expectation to make it a little bit more commensurate with our level of affordability, our level of the resources that exist in our space is perhaps a very hard thing to do, and it would require perhaps a more communal approach where you develop evangelists, you develop persons who are influencers to kind of bring across that message. But I think Amazon, for example, has transformed the way people operate now with this level of immediacy, and I want everything now, and because it has happened, our expectations and the dynamic of how we operate has changed. We just need to make sure that our consumers and our subscribers are understanding that, yes, you can get all of the things that you want, but you have to pay for it. That's just the reality of how it works. And at the moment, we have to do this delicate dance of investing in world-class infrastructure, investing in world-class technologies, but we don't have the luxury of charging the full value and the fair price of what it costs to deliver that. So it's a very, very delicate dance that we have to do. But as I said, the more participation and collaboration we get from more key stakeholders in this ecosystem, the faster we can get to that stage where we no longer have to be having these kinds of conversations, but it would be more around Jamaica is on par with developing countries in terms of our infrastructure and the quality of service that is being delivered. And the economic activity is stimulated enough that persons can actually afford to pay for it.
Yeah, and I just wanted to complement that too, which is why to us, collectively, industry, this forum is so important, because the attempt to convince the average man in the street of what Ms. Ines just explained is not even helpful, right? He's not thinking on that level, but it's important that our policymakers, our leaders, such as persons on this call understand that and can help inform the conversation without sort of trying to tell people that their expectations are too high, which is just not a conversation that you want to have with anybody. You do your best. And it triggered me to make this point. Not many people have as much faith as they ought to in some of our regulatory agencies. So people probably will complain about the OUR as much as they do about service providers. They will complain about the Fair Trading Commission as much as it does service providers. They will complain about the ineptness of the Consumer Affairs Commission as much as they will do of the service providers. But I promise you that a lot of good work is being done by these regulatory agencies who have experts in them, who analyze the dynamics, understand the landscape, and sort of manage accordingly. So when we have unlimited plans, which we still do, and the Fair Trading Commission can assess those plans and can ascertain that the multiples of value being delivered to customers on those plans, even although at some point they may be throttled or they may have a cap at some point, that people are getting multiple times the value as a pay-as-you-go plan, then they will continue to support that kind of business model. But so we need to put some faith in some of those institutions because they are doing a great job. They're not perfect, as we are not perfect, in trying to have the policy balance between what consumers need and what investing companies need to deliver the services in the first place. And when I listened to Mr. Ennis, that really provoked that thought in my mind. And I just wanted to do a plug for them, even although I'm a telco. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Even although I'm a telco, where people can, consume, tons and tons of data. When you're talking about people complaining about credit expiring and so on, I was thinking in my mind, Mr. Sterling, Colin Sterling, well, that's not flow, right? that's not, we have small to not, we're not getting that kind of complaints. People know their plan and their structure better than you and I. They're experts at their rollover minutes and where they get value. So they're very adept at it and they're getting tremendous value. The question is it enough? Perhaps not, right? Because then they have to, all the children have to be on it for school, and then it has to be the entertainment tool, and it's their social access to people and so on. So we're not in any way saying that it's perfect and that people, it's everything to everyone. What we're saying is a ton of value, and we're committed to investing to improve it. But it's this forum, it's this grouping, it's these minds that have to sort of contextualize and understand it, to sort of have the conversations with others so people kind of get the sense of it, and we get the breathing room to have the policy change and make the interest to move the thing along and improve our lot. But I have no expectation that we're going to be able to convince people, Mr. Ennis, that they're not going to be as ambitious or they're not going to desire the best. That's a losing cause in my book. But what it matters is the leadership, the governments, the people who can make a difference to make them better off, to understand and need to facilitate that process, and the rest will be taken care of.
Yeah. So maybe then, Charles and the team, the time is right for that conversation to really be broadened to include the household where you have 4 or 5 devices with those plans with minutes, to say, look, maybe a more stable investment in probably a fixed line bundle is a better way to go, that allows you to work from home, the child to study from home, and those who are not working or studying to still have access. And so that conversation now is hopefully going to be something that is launched from conversations like this, but become more inclusive as we move forward with the plans that you both have.
Yeah, without being dictatorial, right?
Not dictatorial.
Consumers make their choices and they drive the market. But
right, but sometimes those choices are made out of the ignorance or the use to something else. And so when you look, for example, at the work that both your foundations do, the chances there for that work to now be extended or broadened to say, look, let us have a conversation about the 6 or 7 prepaid plans versus that postpaid plan that allows you to do so much more. It's not dictating to them, it's presenting the option, the alternative that really gives them more value for probably the same amount of money when you add all those prepaid plans together.
No, good point.
Good
Absolutely.
point to from Colonel Sterling. Just another question, and as we come to the closing, the back end of this session. So we've heard all of the challenges that both our telcos experience as they upgrade and lay out new infrastructure to support the demands that their customers need. From an upgrade standpoint, we know that the discussion of 5G is heavily about the place. What is a timeline in which your customers, and this is both Flow and Digital, can start experiencing some level of 5G, and to what level can we expect some good coverage where that is concerned? So when can we expect 5G here? And that's from both our telcos.
Right. So we went through a major upgrade of our infrastructure a year and a half ago. And a big part of that upgrade was future-proofing the network to be able to accommodate 5G. 5G is not a technology that is limited by the infrastructure to broadcast it or to deliver the service on. It's limited by the cost of the handsets. The cost of the handsets are quite prohibitive. And if you think about Jamaica imports, I would say between all of the major players, somewhere in the region of about between 2.4 and 2.7 million handsets per year. Of that 2.7 million, I would say about 65% of that are considered smartphones. And the smartphones are actually tiered in terms of their functionality. And then 35% of them are basically just used as to make calls and send text messages. In order for you to actually have a higher uptake of utilization on a 5G network, the manufacturers of handsets, the major ones, the Samsungs, the Apples, the Huawei's, and the Chinese people, the Chinese manufacturers, they have to figure out a way to bring the cost of producing those handsets down. We're not going to have a significant number of persons in Jamaica purchasing a handset for $1,000 US. Just not going to happen. You can't afford it. So unless the handsets are in anywhere between $5,000 and $7,500, you're not going to see a major uptake taking place. And that is one of the limitations of building a 5G network with nobody on it. It's tantamount to buying an 8K TV when there's no 8K content to watch, and it defeats the purpose. You're still watching 4K content or 1080p content. It doesn't make any sense. So that's a limitation that we have. We have a couple of sites that we've tested, but we can't consider or contemplate any kind of full rollout until the cost of those handsets come down significantly. That way we know we would have sufficient traffic on the network to substantiate the investment that would be required to build it.
Yeah, so coming in an excellent response, coming on the back of that response. So it's the same, right? So we have to understand the ecosystem, and even places in the US that have 5G, they're not getting 5G speeds, right? It's not, some of it is marketing. So I totally entirely agree. But however, I'm going to expand the conversation though, is that the question is now, are we having the conversations in the policy space to provide for the seamless transition of this new technology? Are we making the spectrum that will be dedicated to it in some measure available? That's part of the conversation. And the question is, are we having those conversations? And I would suggest to you that we're not really having them yet. And if we understand that the telcos will invest and will help give subscribers, businesses what they need to do what they want, then you recognize that as soon as this becomes available, we will jump at the opportunity. I mean, one of the challenges now is to get all those bank machines and credit card machines and POS machines off 2G, right? Off 2G across the country in the total retail space. So we could reasonably say, okay, yeah, there's still a place for 2G, although we need to have a transition path from it. And it's material. But then we are also using 3G. And there is a place for it. And we're using 4G. And we can dynamically use the spectrum between 4 and 5G. So we need to just understanding this sort of power within our control by technology and stop compartmentalizing in our minds what what will take us to the next year. The question is, what do we want to do? What's affordable? And will it be facilitated to meet the demands and needs of consumers? And I mean, let's probably call it wireless connectivity. Who cares if it's 4 or 5 or whatever? I mean, you want to do what you want to do. You want to upload, you want to download, you want reliability. You don't want, not a lot of jitters, whatever. You're talking about the quality of your experience, and to the customer, they don't care what's on the back end, 5G. What about the whole social dialogue now that 5G is not causing coronavirus? I mean, we got so many of our sites burned, vandalized. I mean, about that whole story. So the point is, we know the time is right to be having that holistic conversation. What's the policy framework? What's the framework? What we're going to make to not just bring in 5G, but to allow companies more spectral capacity to deliver services, because the growth of the demand for capacity is taking off. It's untapped. I mean, just think about the unserved areas. Just imagine if all those areas were brought online. We would need more capacity. We'd need more access to spectrum and so on and so on. So what is required is a holistic conversation, and not just a kind of shuttered conversation about, okay, is it time for 5G? Is it time for 6G? We need to connect the dots so that we get to where we need to in the kind of incremental way we need to, because we're not a rich country. Mm-hmm. Telcos are willing to deploy the latest technology at the drop of a hat. Once it's feasible, the investment will be made, and we'll be there once there's a business case, once it's commercially feasible and the framework allows it. Right now in Jamaica, the framework, there's not much discussion right now about it. Mm-hmm. In the same way, your rights of way policy, which you speak to Mr. Sterling, Colonel Sterling, is largely absent and has not been produced by government, notwithstanding many inquiries about where it is and what's the same. Because you're right. You're absolutely right.
I hear you, Charles, and I must agree that maybe the conversation is progressing a little bit pedestrian, given the pace at which the customers are demanding certain technological advances and the willingness, it would appear from both of you, of the major telcos to invest. And, one of the challenges that we see as we move forward is really, how do we sort of prompt government? How do we prompt the private sector? How do we prompt all stakeholders to sit at the table and have that discussion that will support not only the macroeconomic thrust of government, but also provide a rich environment for continued investment and the improved reliability and serviceability to our customers, particularly those that keep clamoring because they live outside the city limits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can be optimistic, right? We're just talking facts, but we can be optimistic. I mean, everybody on this call is aware about the establishment of the National Broadband Task Force. We are participating in the task force. We there's NICTAC and so on, but we just need to widen the conversation. We need to ensure that different ideas are taken on board, so that when we get a policy mix, when we get an outcome, it matches, it's helpful. So we're still in that gestation period, if you will, right? And forums such are important to help stimulated. But again, we haven't had an outcome, a finalized direction as to what will happen and how we'll proceed. And of course, it's our expectation that it will be a good one. And regardless of what it is, we'll still be here. We'll keep investing and we will tweak and we will support. But we're coming from government trying to build a separate network. Just look at the networks, what's involved, what the costs are, for government trying to fund a complete network, a bespoke network, a proprietary network, all on its own, to a more blended approach, and progress is being made, and I'm very optimistic. But it's not something we should take for granted. It's not something we can take for granted. We just need to be having the conversations.
Thank you to Mr. Ennis and Mr. Douglas. So as we have had some valuable conversation from both our telcos, I hope that everyone found a bit of information there that they can take home. They can start having the necessary discussions. They can have a better understanding as to exactly what is happening. Before I hand over to Mr. Sterling, to Colonel Sterling, to give his closing remarks and close out this session, let me take the time out to thank both Mr. Ennis and Mr. Douglas for taking the time out to be here to sit and have this conversation. It's a needed conversation. We can see the importance of the discussion, and hopefully that can stimulate some progress that we need from a technological standpoint as a nation for nation development, and to adequately reach to Vision 2030 as we have intentions of going towards. So great gratitude and appreciation goes out to both of you for being here and taking the time out to have this discussion. Let me now hand over to our Colonel Sterling for closing remarks and closure of this session for today. Colonel Sterling.
Even Douglas and Charles, the conversation continues, and it really is refreshing to have you both on the same panel. And certainly, while some of the requirements of our customers, of our clients, may be a bit unrealistic in the current economic climate, we recognize and appreciate the work that continues to go into building out infrastructure. I understand the point about build it and they may come, but I also understand the need for return on investment. After all, you're both in the business of making money, and if your shareholders are not happy, then we're going to lose even bigger. And so while the consumers continue to clamor, there has to be that conversation that says to them, look, this is really the reality of it. And it's not going to be really a sledgehammer to crack a walnut, but it has to be made clear that it's not just ask for it and it happens. There's a cost to putting this infrastructure in place. There's a cost every time a kilometer of copper is torn out. There's a cost every time somebody just lights a fire on the side of the road and the fiber is broken. There is a cost every time there is a large downpour and land slippages, or there is a hurricane. And so when you bring all of these to bear, the total cost of ownership becomes almost a burden. And we're not even talking taxes. And so the conversation that probably needs to feed out of this one is, how do you both, as the major players, seek to address these concerns in a more unified manner with government, so that the policy framework not only addresses the guaranteed standards, but recognizes the total investment, the cost of ownership, the return on investment, not unlike what we have in other spaces. Certainly, Jamaicans will be Jamaicans, Atif, and we will always believe that we're there or thereabouts. And
I am
we
a
can,
Jamaican. I know that. Yeah.
yeah, we can always get there, but we also have to be sober in that reach for the sky so that we understand that it's going to take time. It's going to be a process, not just an overnight feat. And certainly, if we can get that conversation to the point where all stakeholders are able to speak frankly and candidly, the opportunities that the pandemic has brought to us will actually bring good rewards further down. I understand the sort of divergence with the government's thrust to have a resilient ring around the country, but I also understand that there's probably room for that to happen where you already have infrastructure in place for co-sharing. And even if that's at a cost, we look at the fact that the North-South Highway, the East-West Highway 2000, they have ducts. And so why would we really need to put in additional ones? It's really about recognizing the cost sharing, the overlap, and how we can leverage these towards a common goal. Now we talk about increased subsea capability. What are the landing sites? Are we looking to have these co-shared, co-located, providing greater access? There the room for a lot more to be discussed. And I hope that this initial discussion has really served as whetting the appetite for those discussions. And certainly we stand ready in this and other forum that we are involved. Certainly the development of the national cybersecurity strategy, etc., are vehicles that we must use to take the conversation forward. Once again, thank you both, and I'll throw it back to Mr. Hewitt.
Thank you, Colonel Sterling. Thank you to, again, to our participants from Digicel and Flow. Thank you to you, our guests that listened both via Zoom and through Facebook. And have yourself a wonderful, productive, and safe rest of day. Thank you, one and all, for being here and taking the time out to be involved in this discussion. Thanks again.
Bye, everyone. Have a great afternoon. Bye, guys.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Take care.